Pigeons 420. Mr. Grow It. From the staff.
This episode is brought to you by AC Infinity. Check out their all-in-one pH pen, which measures pH, EC, TDS, and temperature. The sensor probe is replaceable, and it comes with storage solution and calibration solutions. Click the link in the description section below so you can learn more about their all-in-one pH pen, and the discount code THESTASH15 works on both Amazon and their website, acinfinity.com.
Growers who are looking for that secret sauce usually are just missing something from their garden. And to help with that, we bring you the Stash Blend Premium Plant Additive. Stash Blend brings beneficial bacteria, silicon, seaweed, humic acid, and has enough macronutrition to help lower the dosages of your base feed too. Unleash your plant's true potential with Stash Blend Premium Plant Additive. Available at Growers House. Boys.
Well,
we're in Canada.
Back. We're in Canada, boys.
Canada again.
Here we go.
Canada.
Welcome back.
Hope you guys like these Canadian series.
I hope you guys do too. I hope you guys do. Because you guys keep coming back, which is great.
Keep coming back.
We need to get an F, a T, and an S. Oh, we put them together.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Tattoos.
Oh,
tattoos on our middle fingers.
People be like, why do you guys just have an S? Or why do you just have
What's
a T?
for?
Like, what's that just name? Yeah, I can do it.
You could.
But you guys can't do it.
No, like, why?
I'll get a T randomly on my hand.
It's not like we just came up with this. You know, we have been committed for 4 years.
4 years.
So it wouldn't be like, yeah, babe, it's just a random lady's name. You know,
random letter, one letter just on my finger. Sorry.
Yeah. We'll get them in different orders.
See,
it's
I have
permanent though. I mean, tattoo, permanent, big decision there. I've got tattoos. I know you do. Do you have any tattoos?
Yeah.
You do? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
but
I'm all tatted up.
But for the record, I'm not getting a letter on my fingers.
Excuse me, I already had it planned.
He prefers tramp stamp.
It would be a bit. No, I already have one. I already have one.
That's how we pound. Is we just go back to back,
just butts.
Everybody, it's from the stash.
Well, that took a crazy turn, eh?
It probably wouldn't work great. We would try to make it work, but
I'm trying to figure out why we're getting age restricted. I think I figured it out, guys. I think I figured it out.
That's a tough part.
Wow.
But after 4 years, there's got to be a little something we do to commemorate it. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to go spend like $1,000 on jewelry. Tattoos are permanent, and they hurt on fingers. I don't want to do hand tattoos.
I would do an FTS necklace.
I'd do like a simple one, but my thing is the FTS necklace we could afford would make my neck green.
Yeah.
So I don't, you know what I'm saying? I got sensitive skin to it, break out. But it was some sort of like commemorative, maybe when we hit our 5 year. You know what I'm saying? 5 years is pretty monumental. 4 years is too. 5 years is pretty monumental. We got a whole year. Let's give ourselves a year to come up with something cool.
12 months. This is a good idea. Yeah, let's push that out. That's a good idea.
It's if there's something that you guys, if you're listening and you're watching and you suggest it'd be cool for like the FTS 5 year forever BFF kind of thing, let us know. Because honestly, it would be cool. You know, I just don't want to go and get something stupid and be like, that was corny.
Whoops.
We're all wearing like just necklaces with a letter. Or like the heart that goes together.
They lock together. Yeah, they lock together. The F and the T and the S just
they all come together as one. It's like, and when they do, they light up.
Get a picture, babe.
Yeah, we all got our faces.
Or instead of like the teardrop tattoo, we
each a letter.
F, T, S, and the teardrop.
Like, why do you have an S right there? And one sleeve, half sleeve on that arm, and you just randomly tattooed your face? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I was running out of space.
I didn't have many places to put anything else. So
couldn't think of where to put this one. That's good. And the people ask, why do you have that? It's because I helped people on the internet guide their way to the plant knowledge.
Yeah, it'd be like, we were the stash community. You know what I'm saying? It's like, Trey's a little cooler in that sense. Not that I condone of all of his tattoos, but he don't care. He's like, dude, I love it. It is what it is. I want to remember it forever.
Body's a canvas, baby.
He's got his body's in Wonderland.
I've heard that.
He's got a CLtv tattoo though, and it's cool. It's colored and everything. Like,
that's sweet,
vibrant green, so it pops. You can always see it, you know. And I'm like, dude, that's pretty dope. I'm not gonna, because I think the logo sucks. I made it 10 years ago, and it was pretty crappy. Like, it's basic. I don't know. It looks like clip art now, but
I get it. I understand the body's a canvas.
But yeah, then it's kind of like that. That's a memory.
Memories,
like
baby.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. Like, we come up with something, then it could even be, even if it's not a necklace, we may not do face to face, but a piece that then we put up somewhere. Like, that's the thing.
that we did.
Think about it. Yeah, we'll think about
That's
it.
what we did. That's that moose that we all took out in Canada. We all got a piece of the antler. I'm telling you, the four
Trying
of
to
us
get them
grab
to
a
see a
leg.
moose. I'm trying to get them to see a moose. What are we talking about today, boys?
Oh man, speaking of moose. So
Speaking of moose, I was thinking, we're going to be talking about seedling, beanlings today.
Yeah, so this is a conversation that we've had. I'm looking it up right now on my phone because I like to look up when we do on a part 2. I like to look up when do we do part 1.
except for the last part, too.
And
we
a
did.
science.
And that's the last
had
part
that.
2. I slipped.
I had
didn't have
He
that
did. He
up.
took out his back.
He did.
July 10th, 2021. So that was 3.5 years ago. Wow.
And depending
Yep.
when you're watching this, could be 20 years ago. That's crazy, man.
And it was very, very popular. 63,000 views. And I think a lot has changed since 3.5 years ago. So I think it would be a great topic to bring back up for a part 2. And I think there was quite a few people requesting that we kind of get deeper into some of the things on there. So yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, almost 4 years now, if you believe about it. But that's crazy. That's crazy. What a time it's been together. I think it's an important conversation to have because this time when you start gardening, or this stage that you try to get through when it comes to the plant, is so vulnerable. It's very fragile, and I think I think you got to take a lot of care and caution when moving forward. And I think that caution starts with choosing the right genetics. I know that's kind of a no-brainer. We kind of say that all the time, but it's like, what can help guarantee a good, smooth germination, grow, harvest, satisfaction? Starts with quality genetics.
And
my
properly
opinion.
stored. They could be the name that's good, but you're getting them from some random jack off on the internet and they're in his shoebox under his bed. I can't attest more for properly stored genetics. Because some banks just, I swear, they're sitting in a shoebox and they're just old freebie seeds. Versus when I got the Candy Mountain OGs that were very fresh, new seeds. They all germinated, and I had them in like literally about 24 to 48 hours, and I had straight up tap roots out of all of them. That was for the AC Infinity episode we did. Blew my mind, but I've never had seeds that fresh, other than the ones that I did myself, and I didn't think about how fast they went, and that was the variable. The proper storage, but they were fresh and new.
And that's what happens with the fresh harvests. I mean, they germinate so quick, and they could germinate so fast that it actually falls off the hull. So I don't know if you do the paper towel method, and all of a sudden you open up the paper towel,
yeah.
and the hull's completely disconnected. And you've got
And there's just this
the
worm.
taproot, and you've got the leaves actually already starting to be there. It's like, oh, great. How do I get this in the medium? And, you're usually handling it from the hull and then putting it down in the medium. But yeah, it could be a little tricky. So you got to kind of watch it if you're doing the paper towel method, for example, to make sure you don't let it sit for too long, because they'll crack open and show a taproot and leaves fall off the hull, and it could be add a little difficulty to the planting part.
So sometimes weave through the paper towel too. You notice that, like the growth of that, the taproot will be a little bit through the paper towel, so you got to like pull it out of there gently. With those, I definitely recommend using some tweezers, something gentle, not a sharp tipped one too, because I know some tweezers are like will cut if you pinch too much. You want to be very, very gentle with it and get that out of there, and try not to touch too much. I mean, I've gone using bare hands, but gloves are good. You don't want to risk any pathogens or bacteria, any dirty, nasty grime that could get on them, because this is like an infant. You know what I'm saying? When you go to the hospital, the baby is like in a freaking incubator pretty much, away from everybody. That's a similar thing in this case. You want to be very delicate and treat it very good. And oftentimes, if you do run into it without that top on the helmet head, I'll say sometimes it's nice because it'll just grow into the plant. Sometimes you'll have a situation where that little young helmet will stay on that girl or boy, unfortunately, for too long, and it's weird. You're like, what the hell is going on? I remember looking at one of your videos. I think you had one that continued to have it, and it was recently when you were doing the side-by-side of the local soil that you bought versus the other. And
that was a video from 6 months ago now, 8 months
Whatever.
ago.
it point is,
Like recently.
well, recently enough in terms of like the genetics are newer genetics. You're probably still currently running them. I'm sure you clone shit. So this is more a situation where some people will leave that on there, and I've noticed it stunts the growth between that transitioning period. Like
Really?
the foliage is smaller. It's not as hardy because it wasn't getting light penetration versus its sister that's been opened up, and the top leaves have been getting penetrated with light pretty quickly. You never noticed it?
You talking about the hull being attached to the
Yeah. If you look
seedling?
at,
Yeah,
like,
I mean, sometimes it'll sprout from the medium, and then the hull will be just kind of stuck on there a little bit, right? So like taking it off, and that way the leaves can open up, right? So or sometimes the leaves open up and it's still kind of just hanging off.
Yeah, and the side leaf.
And that's
seen it like it's clipped on there, like literally an earring stuck on the side, just hanging
so
out.
if that's okay. But if it pops up from the medium and it's just a full helmet and there's no leaf showing and it's like that for 24, 48 hours, I'm actually going in there and doing surgery a little bit where I'm taking off that hull, because if the seedling's up there and it's not growing anymore and it's sitting there for 24, 48 hours, where it's like, well, now it's a little bit stunted, right? It's not doing anything else. It should open up on its own, right? And maybe it would open up on its own another 24 to 48 hours, but why not open it up and get that seed hull off of the seedling so it can continue on growing? Because at that point, it needs to intake light. It wants to intake the light from the leaves, right?
When you're getting that lanky, tall stem that may fall over, you know what I'm saying, versus getting a plant that's starting to grow. That's why I oftentimes say it kind of stunts it, because it's like, man, I had one plant right next to it the same age, and I know phenotypes, they could vary, but this one looked like nothing after I got the hull off of there, because it was just being blocked by like a massive umbrella, like it was wearing a hat covering up any sort of sun penetration. Other one was twice the size, same age, but it's because it was exposed immediately. The hull came off in the paper towel, so it popped it up right away, and it just exploded. I think that's a big thing, and that's why I like the paper towel method personally. But straight to water, or like you did on the AC video months back, at this point you did. I got to see the plant at this point, because I forgot which one you ended up growing, but you just went right into soil.
Yeah, straight to soil. That's a common technique for me. But what would you? A common question I get is, at what point should I give up on the attempt to get it to germinate? So let's say you've got it. You got a taproot. You put it into the medium, and you're watering. You're keeping it consistent. For me, typically it's 3 days. That's how long it takes for a plant, or for a plant to come above the soil. But I tell people that sometimes that process takes a week, maybe a couple days after. When do you give up and say, like, okay, I'm done?
Pretty much the same time frame for me, which is like, if 7 days, if it hasn't sprouted from the medium, I'm kind of digging down a little bit, see if I can find that seed, see if it did crack open and a taproot appears, or, hoping that maybe that part of the medium didn't dry out, or, if it hasn't popped in the matter of like 3 to 5 days roughly after planting it into the medium, maybe you planted it too deep. You know what I mean? I'm only really planting it down 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch, maybe at the deepest, and some people might say, hey, 1/2 an inch is a little bit too deep, but any deeper than that, and it could take a week, it could take 10 days for it to sprout from the medium. So the longest period of time, I'll kind of wait, I'll wait 5 to 7 days. I'm usually digging into the medium to see if I can at least find the seed and see if it's doing anything.
That's good. Yep. I can't add anything to that. I just think I don't waste your time. Don't waste your time, but don't give up too fast. I like the idea of digging down to kind of see what's going on. Did it pop out? Is it kind of molded or rotted based on moisture, overwatering? That's good advice. Great advice. One thing that I also think is really important. So it pops up above the soil, above your medium, and sometimes I find that either based on heat, or we'll just say temperature, or the intensity of the light, maybe even the humidity in the environment / media, it stunts. It'll be about day 5, 6, 7 of growth, of coming above the pot, and then all of a sudden there's nothing. There's no growth after that for another 3, 4, 5 days. I will actually tell somebody to feed that. If you've been watering it, even as early as it is, I'd feed it. Give it a little jump of a little bit of food. I don't know if you guys have ever had that, where it's just like they kind of stunt at the beginning, from probably my own cause or doing, and I just find that just a little feed, low dose.
Well, sometimes it can be deceiving, and a beginner, for example, often gets confused. They think it's stunted, but that first 7 days, that first 7 to 10 days, really, it doesn't. If you're looking at it every day, for example, you might not see much growth. It usually takes time for the roots to establish that first 7 days. So you might not see much upward growth. So maybe it's not actually stunted. So I figured I'd throw that out there. You might want to kind of be a little bit patient. Usually around day 7 to 10 is when I'm like, okay, am I really starting to see some upward growth now? The roots should have established at this point. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. That might not have been stunted to begin, but right off the bat, when it sprouts from the medium, light. If there's no light, it's going to be yellow leaves on there. Don't panic. Once you get light, within a matter of 6 to 12 hours, it'll go from yellow to green as the plant starts intaking photons. Moisture level in the medium, obviously, we probably talked about this on part 1, but you don't want to overwater, don't want to underwater, so making sure that moisture level is right to begin. So, for example, if you're starting in a solo cup, I usually don't need to actually water anything. I set the moisture level right to begin, and then when it sprouts in the medium, I'm not doing any type of watering until day 5 at the earliest. And maybe I'm going in, some people go in there, and I've done it before, where day 2 or 3, the top of the medium is a little bit dry, hit it with a very, very light spray. But if you spray too much, it would seep down. You could actually stunt the seedling. They're so delicate. Even a spray there, overdoing the spray could stunt it because it's just so delicate. But generally speaking, first 5 days, I'm not doing any type of watering. In between day 5 and 7, I'm usually hitting it with the watering. Be very, very gentle, trying not to overwater because it's so sensitive from there. So.
Yeah, I like how we're using time frames, and I'm glad that you mentioned that it could be stunted just based on root growth, because it's very important. What's not growing up could be growing down. And we're talking within days. We're talking just a couple of days, right? That 5, 6, 7 days. You're like, well, wait, those are the days where it's going downwards. That's 7, 8, 9 days. That's where you might get a little bit. So, and when you say, with a little bit of intensity to light or the intensity of light, she might be a little bit yellow. Give it 12 to 24 hours, and you might see a correction correction in the growth for her. So,
and then as far as what somebody might be asking, how much PPFD should you give a seedling? So just add that since we're talking about light. 200 to 400 PPFD is the general range. Now, certainly you can go above that, lower than that, but general range.
That's good. So they're just delicate. They're delicate at this stage, just being so fragile.
If your environment isn't dialed in and tightened right, which is why propagation tents are really great to use, that rule of thumb for the watering may not be as accurate, because my dumb ass in the past have just had seedlings on a shelf in my veg room, and they were in the corner, and it wasn't optimal humidity. It was literally probably 40%, and they were drying out so fast.
Great point.
So it's like you got to have that room dialed in, so that way your human intervention is just enough for nature to do its thing. It's massive thing. And for me, I usually run like 70, 80% really high at that point in the room. So it's easier to maintain. The propagation tent from AC Infinity has been a godsend for me, because I don't have to have my whole veg tent that high at all times, especially if I'm transitioning into flower. So now I could just keep this little tiny box just loaded up at all times.
Following a VPT chart, if you
Didn't you make
that. No. As a running joke is Mr. Grow invented VPD. That's a joke.
For a joke,
some people take it seriously.
One. You need to have Mr. Grow's VPD chart just to do it, put your logo on it.
I don't want to be the one to break this to everyone, but if you actually lay down in Mr. Growit's bed and look up, the VPD chart is right there.
Right there. It's crazy. That's just to start his day.
VPD for seedlings. I like to use the Pulse VPD monitors. So if you Google Pulse VPD, seems to be the go-to. They have 3 different charts: one for seedling and clones, one for veg, one for flowering. If you reference that, you'll see. Just look what temperature you're running. Scroll over. There's a dark green range, a light green range, and then a yellow range. Within the dark green range, usually you'll see that that's the ideal range to be in. You'll want to. It usually calls for a higher humidity in the seedling stage. So I'm usually running 70+% RH.
Tropical conditions.
And then as far as temperature, I'm usually running anywhere between 75 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. Not sure what that is on Celsius. Sorry, I can't translate that right now, but
like 22 to 27.
Well, and then
there we go.
We are in a tropical climate here in Canada, so dealing with it often. Do you deal with? And I see looking over there the old AC Infinity humidifier. Do you deal with too much humidity ever when you're in that seedling stage?
No. No, it
is oddly humid lately as we've been here.
It has been. It is very, very humid. The thing is, though, is
Wouldn't
like
have thought that.
in this area, it's almost the only reason that it's not a prime area to grow this plant is the early fall. Snow hits in October almost every year. By late October, we have snow, and it's already cold before that. So we unfortunately have we have optimal growing conditions here. We've got a sun that just beats down at a nice 85 at most, and 80. You might hit 90s every now and again, but it's very seldom. Not seldom.
Well,
it's not the common. You guys are here at 110.
But if you look everywhere, it's an agricultural province.
You're right. I'm in the center. I'm in the wheat belt. This is the
yeah.
agriculture county, if you will. So you're right. You're right. There's the
wheat
reason
belt.
things grow here. It is wheat belt. Yep. And so you could get away with it. I don't have those kind of problems. I don't have dry, humid spots, and the abundance of humidity from outdoors simply just doesn't make it indoors. I just don't have that problem. Now I also have central air and all these things that's moving the air in my house. At most, I sit about 35. In the tent, 61, but that's because we've got it open. But I'm assuming it's probably about 35, 40 here. So I'm still adding humidity, even though it's 94%.
And still able to just leave butt on the table. Blows my mind.
There is no butt on the table. YouTube, leave me alone.
YouTube? I said butt on the table. He leaves his butt right on the table.
Sorry, the humidity
and temperature. So
I think that.
Well, do you run into situations where you're getting too much dry out in your media in between these waterings? Because a lot of people that I know personally will go thank you. You literally taking it. We'll go instead of the solo cup because, and this is where my plants are going to be dead when I get home. If I would have had them in a larger container, I wouldn't have to trust to have somebody water them. But I know no one's watering. I hope Mom, please show up. Didn't tell me she's gonna. Didn't say she was or wasn't. That's the thing, though. But in your case, looking at these plants, you started these in what are those 1 gallons?
I started them in solo cups.
So we're looking over at plants.
And these are 1 gallon pots for those
solo cups into the one. So now that the size that these are, they're going to be wanting water damn near like the solo cups did. So you transition the same amount. But if you start a seedling in a small container, well, it may take longer to develop thicker, hardier roots. You won't have to water as frequently. And you can get away with the temperature or the humidity swing just a little bit as long as your media is moist enough.
I like to start in 1 gallon containers.
I often do too. I just don't have any.
I really like to start in 1 gallon containers versus a solo cup. I prefer it. I like to for a couple different reasons. One, holding on to the moisture a little bit more because the rootstone isn't as established just yet, right? It takes longer. It can be in that container longer before I have to transplant. Those are really the two main reasons why. Eventually I am going to have to transplant, but being in a 1 gal, I could be in a 1 gal for roughly 20 days, around 20 days. Then I'm looking to transplant. When I'm in a solo cup, I'm looking to transplant between days 10 and 14, roughly, assuming growth is good,
Yep. Competition made me do this.
Yeah, there was that. There was that, but then also
no, I would do the same process either way. I always start in solo cups. I always start in solo cups, and then it just makes it easier to plant 15 genetics, have them in solos. Some pop, some don't, and then they typically go to either 1 or 3 gallons. I do upsize a lot because I try to maximize the space in my garden. So smaller the pot, I can maximize the size of the canopy, move it up. I kind of live by the adage that I'm not just training the plant and training the roots as well. So a little abuse down under doesn't always hurt.
More from abuse down under.
And there's nothing wrong with starting in a large container, right? So it's like some people opt to start in a bed or start a 10 gallon, 15 gallon, right? Whatever floats your boat. There's pros and cons to starting in a small container versus a large container. Some I can think of off the top of my head, right? If you're starting in small containers, well, you can fit more plants in that grow space. Starting in larger containers, let's say a 4 foot by 4 foot grow tent, for example, right? Start with a bunch of solo cups in there. If you're in 20 gallon grow pots, well, you're kind of limited to 4 at that point, right? You can only plant 4.
I didn't even think about that.
But if you start in a large container, well, you're not going to have to water as frequently to begin. It goes back to the root zones not being established as much. You're not going to need to transplant it all if you put it in your final container throughout the entire time. So there are pros and cons to both ways to go about it. You can have success either way, starting in a large container or a small container.
Well, and I think also if you're going organic, you know, oftentimes the rule of thumb that I've learned is like a larger container is what you're going to want to grow with. So if your food is in a small little container, just expect to be transplanting the same as somebody who's not using organic soil, because your plant's going to be eating everything that's available in there pretty quickly if it's a small solo cup.
Yeah, I think it's just important if you're going to be going into a larger pot with a smaller plant, just to optimize your watering. Don't
Yeah, that's big. That's
Don't-
big. 'Cause
yeah.
You can overwater so easily in a large.
so easy, and that water's not going anywhere. There's no roots, and then I would assume that your air is not just a tornado in there that's taking away all the moisture. So I would just optimize watering. If you've got a beanling in there, then I would just water within maybe a 6-inch circle. That might even be a little bit too much for a beanling. Maybe a 4.5-inch circle around it, and you let it go. Old timers used to tell us, you don't water the plant, you water the root ball, and you want to water around it so that the roots kind of like reach for the moisture. If you keep the water up close to the plant, then the roots don't get to exercise. They just stay
Lazy
back because
roots.
there's just always water right here. So yeah, just maximize watering based on the size of the plant.
That's probably the biggest mistake, I think, is overwatering.
Oh,
Biggest mistake
hands
that
down.
causes stunted growth for sure. Like,
Kill your roots.
because once you've overwatered, it's a lack of oxygen in the root zone. And that's really what's stunting the plant. And I think that's the biggest mistake that beginners make, both in smaller containers and larger containers, because you could totally overwater a solo cup too and cause stunted growth. And transitioning over to, if you do stunt that growth in the seedling stage the first 7 days or so, man, oftentimes, to be honest with you, I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting over sometimes.
Cull the
I
herd.
have stunted
herd.
seedlings over, and you can clearly see that day 7, stunted seedlings, even some yellowing, some like rusting happening to those leaves. If I plant another fresh seed in a new container right next to it, that will outgrow the stunted seedling, versus the time it takes for that stunted seedling to recover. Like, it can recover, sure, certainly.
A lot of work.
But if you're on a time crunch, right, if you're trying to save time here and you have the seeds, plant new ones, that could definitely outgrow a stunted seedling.
I remember that video we watched a while back. I think maybe High Time shared it. I don't know where the hell we watched. Maybe it was the Growers Gauntlet thing. But a dude had a time lapse and he had 4 plants in, and then there was the one in the corner that nothing was happening. He was putting like tops on it and things in it over and over, trying to get it to grow. And he eventually just pulled it out and continued the time lapse. You see it's gone. It was recently on High Times. I'm pretty sure they shared it. And it's like, shout out to you, brother, for trying. But when the other plants were like yay big and the other one didn't even sprout at all, get rid of it. Let alone if it's growing and everything else is ready to go into flower damn near, and you've got not even a clone size plant. Like, it literally will be faster to take a clone from your other flower or your other vegging plant and grow that versus it would be to just continue trying to nurture this weak seedling,
And it will recover most of the time, right? Obviously situational dependent, but you can get most seedlings to recover, right? But gosh, again, I don't want to emphasize it more and more. Like, it's going to take 7 days for it to recover. And then by day 21, you've got, the plant has bounced back, but you've got a small plant at that time. And then like all of a sudden you're at day 30, 40, and it's still not you're still not ready to even close to flip to flowering. And all of a sudden it's going to take a while. It could really throw you off track schedule wise. I think a lot of small home growers will look to flip to flowering day 30, day 40, some people up to day 60, right? But and we do a whole episode on how to flip to flower fast. That's an upcoming one, so stay tuned for that. I think it's a really, really great conversation. That'll go into that a little bit more. But again, like, it could really, really set you back if you're taking the time to try to get seedlings to recover versus just starting fresh.
I 100% agree. I can't add anything to that. I really want to express, when you say overwatering, I think the next hardest or most frequent issue is overwatering. I'd say that the issue that I come across after that is the acclimation of the plant to the new environment. A lot of people are using domes more than ever. Propagation
tends the
tends
plant to the environment.
Yeah, they're not hardening it off. So the plant isn't ready to go from a premium, like, at least that's how I describe my germination and propagation stage. It's premium. There's pump full of moisture. It's 90+%. It's got this dome. It's fantastic. It's 82 degrees in there. And then all of a sudden these plants go from the mother's womb to reality.
To the tomb.
Oh, boss. And that shock is that, again, same idea. It's going to kill them, and trying to get them to rebound from that is very, very tough. And so it's not hard to take the plant out of the environment, to put it in the new environment for half hour, 30 minutes, take it out, put it back into its environment, let it go back, sit back in the environment for an hour, a couple hours, bring it back. I know it sounds like a lot of work, but
That's that hardening off period.
it's particularly with clones, because clones the same thing. In order to get that good root system, you really got to pump them full of water. Humidity. And it's just a reality check for them once they get out of there.
Are you talking about going from indoor to outdoor, or
Both.
indoor?
Both.
Well, like
Both.
maybe like your propagation tent to your veg space, because let's say you're using the ion beam lights, little lower wattage, lower intensity, and now you're flipping over to your
Yes.
Evo
Yes.
8s,
I would argue that
you know?
I would still want you. Now, this is taking a little bit back to the HPS days, but I would have still hardened them off, going from like a CFL or a light LED to a full-on HPS
I used
or
to
a
do that
metal
for a few
halide.
days. I'd take all
Take
12
them
of my
out,
plants,
put them out,
and bring them in. It could totally bro science.
Yeah.
And take them in there, and I put them in there for the like 4 or 5 hours maybe, and then I go bring them back into underneath the T5s.
See, and in 4 or 5 hours, I'd hope that they didn't already die.
Dude,
You know,
it's
sometimes
crazy
that
how much
reality
more
check
girth
is-
they would just like, because that intensity of light, it's like I'm putting them in steroids. They're going to
Oh, I
hyperbolic
see what
time
you're saying.
chamber.
I used to
then
take mine
they'd
and
be
put them
ready.
in the windowsill on the floor and let the sunlight just beam on them for a couple hours. And
Yeah,
to
so
kind
give
of
them some different intensity light, and it
Yeah.
totally bro science. Just disclaimer, totally bro science.
Yeah.
But-
I'm in particular, I'm referring more to when you're transitioning to the new environment and you want to just make sure that they're not going to die. It's the acclimation phase or hardening off, whether you're going indoor to outdoor or to a high propagation area to the veg tent. I'm assuming, you're going to have less of an impact if they're hardier genetics and so on and so forth, but I'm just speaking in particular to going from the seedling stage into the new veg space.
Well, and I think this is my argument of not being too sensitive and too nurturing as a seedling. Because if you're sitting here and it's like in like an incubator, I've seen some people are like, okay, I started with peroxide and this and this and this, and then after that I flipped to this, and then I gave it 2 days in here, and it's like almost too sensitive. So once you do run into a little harder of a situation, that plant, it's almost like it's just weak and it can't handle. It's not been hardened off. Total bro science again, but to the point where I sometimes see better results when I just plop it and drop it versus trying to go real slow in a small container, then another container, then another container. Then it's, I don't know, maybe it's subjective, but
Sounds like I'm a little bit rougher when it comes to that transition of environment. To be honest with you guys, comparing ways. I live in a very dry climate. Natural RH is 20 to 30%. Wintertime, it gets down into the teens
that's insane.
as far as relative humidity percent. So, I have to condition my lung room and so on and so forth. But going from 70% RH, for example, I have taken seedlings and put them into their new environment and struggled sometimes with humidity. And, they went from 60% RH down to an environment that was 30% RH. And I'm trying to think if I really had a noticeable stunt. I don't think I can say confidently like I have seen a stunt, but maybe it did stunt and I didn't see it. But so yeah, I've typically when I do that transition, I'm kind of keeping that same humidity for seedling, and I'm even pretty close to it in veg. I'm still up 60+% in veg as well. So that transition from seedling to veg humidity and temperatures in the same range that I spoke about before. It's not that big of a swing, so maybe maybe I just don't notice it because I'm not transitioning
This is why I
that
disclaimer bro science.
big of a difference of environment.
Sometimes you do stuff based on the logic that you have. Like, well, it would make sense, right? I
kind of shifted the conversation afterwards in regards to going from indoor to outdoor. I meant more so that when you're going from like that the propagation area, so like that high humidity, like a clone dome is essentially what I'm thinking of when you got that propagation.
80%,
So 80
90 plus percent humidity.
Yeah. And then you're taking that. So we're day 14 for clones, and then you take that clone, you put it into its medium in the pot, you take that pot, you throw it in the tent. My
Doesn't need
tent
that
is
intense
never
light, it doesn't
90
need that
plus
humidity.
percent
Yeah.
humidity. So that stage right there is really what I was referring to, and particularly for seedlings because they're just still so fragile. So yes, you probably didn't see a difference because you are able to keep your not necessarily your germination area, but the veg or the early veg stage and the veg tent relative to each other. Maybe I kind of botched that ending, but
my biggest thing too is going to be genetic specific. Headbanger, I had in nurture and baby, and then right next to it, I had Scooby Doo that was just like, hey, toss me wherever, do whatever, brother. Cloned, easy. Headbanger, nurture, low temperatures. I mean, finicky. Same with transitioning into flower. You know, it's like I'd notice a difference of a little bit of stress from the light versus nothing else had that. Well, all right, I'll treat you a little different. So some genetics may need it more than others. If you got it, just like you got a pick and mix deal and you grab 3 beans, maybe take that much extra energy to ensure that you're getting the best results. If you got a bunch of extras, you got a 10-pack, and you're like, whatever, YOLO, throw them in, make it work. Because I know oftentimes when I'm popping a bunch, and the logic would be if you're doing a bunch to take your time to see everything. But if I'm doing so much, I don't have time to look at all these. When I popped 50 recently, I was just like, all right, fine, put them in veg, don't care. Didn't transition anything, just flip the room over. That was it. So it just depends on the scenario. Everything's very based on variables. You know?
Good point. I want to touch upon nutrition real quick. Definitely, yeah. Let's touch upon nutrition because nutrition in the seedling stage is super important. You can start with bagged soil that already has nutrition in it, and that's arguably one of the most easiest ways to go about it because you don't need to actually mix up any nutrients at that point, right? Or you could start in an inert medium or hydroponic system, right? But you're mixing up nutrients at that point. You're ensuring that there's a certain EC or ppm that you're giving the plants. General range is around 250 ppm on the 500 scale. TDS tester is what I usually aim for in the seedling stage if I'm in cocoa. And again, if you're in soil, you don't have to worry about that because it has the nutrition in there, which can make things a little bit easier there for you, labor-wise.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the beauty of an organic soil that just nurtures and takes care of it, I would always say make sure you're on your EC and your ppm and all that because a lot of people, I feel like once upon a time, everyone I knew was growing like that. But so many people I know, unless you have beautiful, great water. See you over there looking around like, oh, me. beautiful water. But my water comes out high
but
ppm.
Most people aren't.
Well, that's the thing. Unless you're using a filter, my water is high ppm out of the gate and high EC. Like that, it just is what it is, and high pH. So you have to really pay attention to the water there too, and then the amount of input you're putting. Higher nitrogen, obviously, as their babies. But I also like to do an aloe water, like watering, and that being, a natural root hormone essentially is going to help that plant just get in there. And I believe aloe can be utilized as a wetting agent too. So I think, don't quote me. No, maybe not.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't think so. I think it's rooting mostly.
Rooting. Well, either way, it's really readily available for me. So I'll use that oftentimes. And if I have more organic soil like I use, I'm not worrying about any nutrients then. I've already got enough food in there for the plant to survive. And I'm just giving that as extra rooting solution. Maybe recharge would be the only other thing. And then once it's healthier and larger and big enough, probably for me, like after 2 weeks of growing as a seedling even, I'm switching to a 1/4 teaspoon of hash blend or half a teaspoon.
Yeah, I was going to mention early in the seedling stage dash blend. You can start that right off the bat as a seedling. That has mycorrhizal fungi, which is super, super important. That's one thing that George Murray, shout out to him, he helped us formulate stash blend. Is he's like, get it in there early, help establish that beneficial bacteria and the fungi in there. Help establish a network to begin. The earlier, the better. So shout out Stash Blend. Definitely that's something you can use in the seedling stage. You can use it out there at the entire grow. Stashblend.com. Discount code the stash.
Yeah, and use the silica within there too. Like that's another thing. Unless like I've got parboiled rice hulls in my media, so I'm able to have natural silica in there, so I'm not as worried about it. But before, prior to just using like let's say Pro Mix, I'd be adding in Stash Blend, especially because I'm adding silica as well. So there's a few reasons why you want to start off by giving a little bit of food to the babies, but you want to make sure you're not going too heavy and too hard. 200 ppm, 250 ppm. I'm usually 200 ballpark for me in cocoa when I was doing cocoa, but I constantly like to stress my life out by getting finicky genetics. So there's that.
Start small and start low and work your way up when it comes to feeding your very young, fragile plants. I think that's fair to say.
And that's working us into the veg stage. And not to cut it short, just to ask the question, should we do a whole video on just nurturing and taking care of veg plants? Just
I think it's a
fair.
good one. I think that's a great conversation to have.
let us know in the comments
I'd like to
section.
hear from you guys. That's awesome. What a
Comment.
great conversation. While we see the names coming up, I want to give a huge shout out to our patrons. Thank you to you guys
Thank
for
you.
supporting us. We appreciate
I
you.
see you over the BSP.
Patreon.com/FromTheStash. The last few weeks has been awesome seeing everybody, the new patrons show up. Thank you guys for supporting us and taking advantage of all the perks too, the different tiers that you have, behind the scenes content, early releases, shout outs on the show. We appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for hitting that like button, watching every Sunday. We appreciate you guys.
Make
Wink
sure you
in
check
the
out
back.
Stash merch also. This is a hidden design. You can't see it right now because this is an early release, but eventually, shout out to our editor for moving it.
A lot of
But
good designs over at Stash Merch.
StashMerch.com. Bangers coming. Exclusive merch for Patreon coming soon as well. Yeah, big shout out to Wink. 1s and 2s in the back, making it happen.
Thanks,
He thinks
Wink.
he's just chilling, but he's really grilling. He's cooking over there.
Grilling, baby.
Those are bars.
Thanks, guys. I'm Pigeons. That's Chris. That's Rob.
And I'm Rob. And
this
we're
is from the stash.
We're going to do it every time.